What did I read? I read Diary of a Void by Emi Yagi. Emi Yagi is an editor at a Japanese women's magazine. She was born in 1988 and lives in Tokyo. Diary of a Void is her first novel. It won the Daisai Osamu Prize, awarded annually to the best debut work of fiction. Her next book, When the Museum is Closed, will be published in English in July 2025. This was translated from the Japanese by David Boyd and Lucy North. I'm really glad that I read this.
Me too, because I keep seeing that at bookstores, and I'm like, I want to buy it, but I need Ariel to finish reading it so I can know whether or not to buy it.
Yeah, okay, this was great. I'm confused by it being translated by both David Boyd and Lucy North.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like both of them, but it's funny. Why did they need two?
Yeah, I'm just very fascinated by that. It's funny how we know all these translators' names.
I feel like they're partly the authors as well to me now. Like I'm like, oh yes, of course, Lucy North and Polly Barton and all those people.
Yeah, they're Aunt and Her, like all of the Korean and Japanese translators that are always translating stuff for us. It's such a small pool as well, which is interesting. What's the other one? Ginny
Tapley? Ginny something Tapley.
Tappling, something like
that.
She
does a lot of Hiromi Kawakami's books, I think.
Yes. There's like 6 of the translators, and they do all of the Japanese translations. It's very interesting. This, you guys might recall me talking about this last year, because I read part of it last year and, just ended up putting it down for whatever reason, and I picked it back up, but I did restart it because I was like, it's been way too long since I didn't even remember how far in I had gotten. I'd gotten farther than I remembered.
Oh.
I was like a third of the way, and I was like, I read all of this. Like, I read way more than I thought. And I read this all in one day, which was really cool. On the date where Connor and I went out, I took 3 books with me. I took Diary of a Void, I took Samurai William, and I took Single Man. And I ended up, I don't know, I was just in the bookshop, or in the first cafe, and I was like, I'll start with Diary of a Void. I'll give this a couple pages. And then I got sucked in. And then actually late at night, I was like, I want to keep reading. And so Connor fell asleep and I kept reading, which always feels like epic to me. When Connor's sleeping and I'm reading, I'm like, look at me, I'm such a reader. I can't stop.
I love that.
Okay, so this book has a fantastic premise. It is about a woman who works in a corporate office. She specifically works at a factory that makes paper cores. So like the cardboard core in the inside of tape, or inside of paper towel, or paper cores. That's what they make. Yeah. And so she's been working at this company for a few years. She had been working at another similarly boring corporate office job, but that was just kind of quite slimy, and like the men there treated her really badly, and like kind of like sexual harassment vibes. And so when she got this opportunity came up, she was like, yeah, I'm just gonna switch jobs. So she switched jobs, and she realizes that like no one here sexually harasses her or anything, but she's really overused. Like, at the start of the novel is she's sitting at work, she's at her computer, she's doing work that she's supposed to be doing with her paper cores. And somebody is like setting up for a meeting, and they're like, all the coffee cups are still out. Why didn't anyone clean up the coffee cups? And the main character's listening to this, and she's like, it's not my job to clean up the coffee cups. I was not hired to clean coffee cups. So I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then that man comes over and he's like, could you clean up the coffee cups? And she's like, yep, okay, no problem. And she goes and she cleans them up, and she's like, I don't get why they don't, like, each person doesn't clean up their own coffee cup. Like, why do they leave it? And then I have to clean it. And she basically is talking about all of this labor that she has to do that kind of isn't part of her job description, but because she's a woman and because she's like one of the newer hires. But even so, now newer people are being hired, but they're all men. So they don't get these like dumb side jobs. Yeah. They're not dumb. It's still labor. It's valuable labor, right? But you know what I mean? Like, it's like not part of her job. Yeah. So she like has a secret revolution. She's like, do you think it'd be okay if I don't do this in the future because I'm pregnant? And it triggers my morning sickness. And all of a sudden, there's this massive shift at her company where everyone starts to really revere her and take care of her and treat her completely differently. And of course, they don't give her the extra jobs because she's pregnant. They help her carry things, and they do their own work when they're supposed to do it, and she's left alone. And like, she's allowed to go home at 5, which is when her job ends, but she always works late. Yeah. And she's allowed to like take time off if she's not feeling well, things like this. But of course, she's not pregnant. She made this up. And so the novel is written like each chapter is a week, but it's not like it skips some weeks, but it'll be like week 14 of her pregnancy. And it like she's really obsessed with this app, and she tracks all of everything that she's doing in her app that's like Baby and Me. And so she's like, I went to a mommy's aerobic class. I ate this food and these vitamins, and this week my baby is the size of a melon or the size of whatever. Oh my gosh. And so she's kind of memeing her way into being pregnant. Like she's like really doing everything beautifully, and it's a beautiful and very fascinating commentary on how we treat women, what we value in women, how we take so much like better care of them when they're pregnant because we see them as doing the thing women are supposed to do, which is obviously such a gross idea. It's great that you're having a kid, but you were just as valuable before you had a kid. It talks a lot about corporate culture in Japan, but it also talks about like what happens when you give yourself the space to actually take care of yourself. Like she's actually like similar to what you're doing. She's like starting to go to yoga classes. Yeah. She's like, I've always meant to do this. I never prioritized it. Yeah. And it's only now that she's pretending that she's taking care of a baby. So she's not only taking care of herself, she's taking care of someone else, that she's finally eating better and going to these classes and So I loved it. I thought the commentary was fascinating. I thought that the character was really good. I will say, I felt there was a couple of moments where the translation was a bit confusing. And I was like, is this because there was 2 translators? Am I like reading too much into this? But there was definitely, or was it Emi Yagi? Like that was her writing style. There was like just a few moments throughout the book where I was like, I couldn't quite picture what was going on. Right. And so that was strange. But not to a point where I wouldn't recommend it. Like, it was still a good translation. It was just a couple of strange moments. And then I will say, obviously, you're wondering, what's going to happen at the end? Like, is a baby going to appear? Is she going to get pregnant magically? And which is not out of the realm of imagination, because obviously so much Japanese literature has a magical realism element. Or is she going to have to, like... I was like, every time she saw a baby, I was like, is she going to steal that baby? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're like just really wondering. You just don't know. And there's so many possibilities and ways it could go. And I will say I really enjoyed the ending. So I don't want to spoil anything, but I enjoyed the ending. I thought it was a really cool book. And I think it explores a really interesting part of Japanese culture. So there we go.
Awesome.